Welcome to another episode of Dad's Rules with Kevin Belzer. And again, I have a special guest. But before we introduce him, I want to explain what we're doing. So we're having a new series starting here on Dad's Rules where I am going out into the community, finding business people, entrepreneurs, people in sales, because guess what? As this economy is going wherever it's going, whatever you want to believe in the macro, micro of the economy out there, we need people like my guest that are going to help take us out of it. And what I want to do is I want to have him share his knowledge and let you know, hey, we do have people out there that are busting their butt to make sure we get this economy turned around as fast as possible. Because guess what? It's going to take people like my guest here to get it done. So why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. My name is Ryan Matthews. I am with Tenant Trade Up. I'm also in real estate. I really focus on the 1031 and the tax exchange process on the investment side.
So real quick, why don't you explain the 1031 to people out there? Because I know a little bit about it, but I don't deal with it at all. Because like we talked about before we got on air, is that there are a million ways to do real estate.
Absolutely.
And you want to have somebody that's an expert in certain categories. So like for me in 1031, I know what it is on the surface, but I ain't your guy.
Right.
I'm going to go refer them over to somebody like you.
Absolutely.
Why don't you go ahead and explain that?
Perfect. Yeah. So the 1031 process is, for example, if you have an investment property, whether it could be a business or a single family rental, multifamily, anything like that, can't really use stocks and bonds or anything like that, but anything income producing or royalty producing, you can basically sell that, put your money into basically kind of like an escrow account in real estate where they hold it. You never take the money.
Okay.
You then find a replacement property.
Okay.
And then you don't pay any capital gains on that. So you can save like that 25% on that. And now where the Tenant Trade Up program comes in, I'm finding clients who are maybe cash flowing maybe $500 or less a month.
Yeah.
They can then get rid of that property,
okay,
trade it up into something where now they cash flow better, have better margins. And I mean, the ultimate goal of owning real estate is to have that freedom option choice. So that's where we give that back to people.
Yeah, so for simple math, people out there, if you had $100,000 in gains, $100,000 equity in it, you wouldn't have to pay $20,000 to the government. Instead,
Correct.
You get to roll it to another property. So it's a nice tax benefit that a lot of people probably just aren't familiar with.
Exactly. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a way to where a lot of people just say, hey, this is part of doing business, where the way I was thinking about it, it's not. And you can save that money that you've earned and you've gained, and then you continue to snowball that and stack that money.
Well, yeah, because the reality is when they sell that property, they're already going to have about 7 to 8% in cost anyway, because they're going to have real estate commissions, they're going to have title fees and all that.
Precisely.
You don't want to add another 20% on top of that to where, okay, what was the point of even selling it?
Exactly.
That's 28% of your gains.
Right.
Okay, so that makes a lot of sense. So what's this on your shirt?
So Tenant Trade Up program.
Okay.
And that's so adding to that 20%, and so you say the cost to sale 7 to 8%.
Yep.
With my program, we have a list of curated buyers.
Okay.
So in the investment space, what I would do is I'd say find somebody who wants to sell. Another investor, it's traditional for the investor to come in and they actually pay for any realtor fees.
Oh.
So if you're the person who's looking to do this tenant trade up,
Let's save them about 6% then.
Right.
Because they're still going to have title fees. And stuff
right.
like that.
So, but even in those investments, the buyers typically pay all of that.
Oh, wow.
So you save your 20% in capital gains that you'd have to pay
Another 8%.
and your whole cost to sell. So you can actually gain up to maybe 30%
Yeah.
and then go buy in there. And in that case, the realtor fee on the other end is paid for by that seller.
And the way I understand it anyway is that when you start getting into properties, they get traded around anyway, correctly?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. It's pretty amazing. So do you do this in multiple states?
Yes. I am here full-time in Arizona, but I'm also licensed in Washington.
Okay.
The reason I did that is I'm from there, and that started off with some family and friends needing to do some business.
Yeah.
But looking at kind of the trending patterns where people are moving across the country, it's more favorable to own rental real estate in Arizona. So,
Really?
yeah, what we're seeing is
the cost in Washington?
cost and the laws. It's easier as like a property manager. If you need to like evict somebody, there's a little bit more aggressive here, so you can actually kind of take action. So as a property manager, it's a little bit easier to own real estate here.
Like I think it's California. The rules are they got to be so late before you can even start the process. It's like several months. Then you can start the process, and then it could be they set up to like another 6 months after that.
Yep.
They're making it to where there's some states it makes no sense to even have rental property. 'Cause
Precisely.
you could have like 9 months with no income coming in, and they don't protect the landlord at all.
Right. Exactly. It's very much in favor of the tenants. So that's where I've seen I follow the trending where people are moving from.
Yep.
So you get California, Washington, the Chicago, Detroit area, New York.
Blue states, what I call it.
Yes. And they're coming to Arizona, Texas, and Florida.
Yep.
So
That's what I
catching
see as
that
well.
flow.
Yep.
That's right. Being in both states helps.
Yeah, it's absolutely blows my mind how the rules work here. I love it because it's like if you want to invest in Arizona, it makes very sense to use you for that.
Absolutely.
Now, do you handle the property management side things too, or do you have a different company that handles that?
Yeah, the brokerage I'm in, we do have a property management company,
Okay.
So we can handle that. I do have a network of property managers that can handle it, and depending on the process, like I'm pretty familiar with what fees, like if it's an Airbnb versus a long-term, like 12-month lease, the fees are going to be different, but I have different companies that I work with.
Yeah, I found that there's a lot of things like that I just would rather outsource.
Yep, absolutely.
I'm just curious if you were the same.
Yes.
In that way.
Yeah, I know what I'm good at. I focus on that and outsource the rest.
Yeah, we were talking before we got on there. It's like I don't like any of the TC work, the transaction coordinator work. I'd rather have somebody else that handles that. And you're probably like me. I'd rather go focus on what I consider 20% activities.
Absolutely.
The prospecting, the follow-up, and the negotiation, and that's it. Everything else is like that's somebody else's lane.
Yep. Exactly. I've really focused on figuring out what I am good at, like the negotiation, the marketing, finding those clients, and that type of kind of more difficult stuff that I like to do.
Yeah.
And then everything else, I'd rather have somebody else do it.
I see you all over social media. So are you using social media to get new clients now as well? Or what are you using social media primarily for?
Social media, yes. I'm using that to keep people updated on the market, keep people attracting new clients, and then letting them know what I am doing.
Okay.
So, and then I do have tenanttrade.up.com, which if you're interested in that, how that program works, that's where we can kind of connect on that side.
Yep, and I'll have that down in the show notes as well. I'll get that from you so that they can not have to remember and try to write as they're driving down the road.
Exactly.
Wouldn't exactly be safe.
Yep.
So what got you into real estate?
That's a great question. I was working in the insurance field as a claim supervisor in the auto damage, and I was tired of trading time for money. And I realized that a couple of friends had been in real estate, and they said, you have the personality. Really, I didn't know what was going on, but I wanted to not trade my time for money. Right. And I knew that, I can connect with people really well, and being able to, it was much more than just opening doors and showing houses, but I think I was always interested in homes, and I thought that real estate was a great avenue, and I know that's the way to long-term wealth. And that's where it kind of was like, hey, one day I said, this is the way I got to go. Yeah. And here I am. Yeah,
there's something about the fact that if you get into any kind of sales job or you get to where you become entrepreneur on your own business, that you do control your wealth. Whereas if you're trading hours for dollars,
right?
Which, that's most jobs out there.
Exactly.
You're never going to get wealthy that way. It's just not impossible. To where if you're in sales and you didn't do good that day, well, it's probably your fault.
Right.
You rolled over instead of rolled out.
Exactly.
And handled the day that way when you should have got up and started hustling.
Yeah.
On it.
Yep.
Yeah. It's by far the best thing I ever did. I don't know why more people don't do it. I mean, I guess I kind of see why more people don't do it because it's a very roller coaster of emotions.
Absolutely. That is, to put it lightly.
Yeah, it is like you can literally be riding a high like I was this morning, and then right before I came in to start recording today, you get whacked upside the head, and you're like, what the heck? And then I know this afternoon the roller coaster is going to go the other way when I'm showing somebody a home.
Absolutely.
So it's like, I'm like, okay, we'll just ride it out.
Yeah. I mean, I was just, before we came on, I just had a phone call where 52 hours ago I had a deal that was about to go through, and then we had something crazy come up with an assessment where the buyers were like, we're out. And now they're closing tomorrow when they were supposed to close on April 10th. So we moved, going from less than 3 days ago to the we're going to go back on the market to we're closing right now. It's wild.
I know.
So you never know.
I know, and we all have those kind of crazy stories. I mean, and you have the deals that are layups and feel like you're on some of those shows that are on HDTV to where they make it look that simple.
Right.
I can tell people out there, it's all fake.
Yep, 100%.
They have used one of my listings on that show that was under contract, so no, it's all fake. They've already closed on a home. So I'm going to spoil it for everybody out there. That's reenactment TV, not real TV.
100%.
But you do have deals every now and then that is, you showed one home and you're done.
Right.
And then you have ones to where it was 5 years of me fixing somebody's credit and still 5 years later jumping through hoops to get them a home to where
Exactly.
it's long-term working with them.
Yeah.
It's all over the map.
Yeah, you just never know what you're going to get. And what I've really found is when I sit down and tell people, I say, well, so once we'll sign like a either buyer contract or a listing contract, I say, okay, now it's going to get really crazy all the way through and until I tell you, hey, your sale is done and recorded.
Yep.
Something crazy is going to happen. I don't know what it's going to be,
Yeah.
but I'll tell you when we get there.
Oh, yeah.
And people kind of laugh at me, or they'll look at
never
husband and
believe
wife, they'll look at the other, be like, somebody's going to freak out, but it always happens. But now, once I set that stage now, it's much easier when we get that and be like, remember when I told you that? Here's what it is.
Yep. Yeah. For you people in sales out there, the best thing you can do is set expectations ahead of time of what's going to go on. They will laugh at you. They do. It happened this morning. I signed a listing this morning, and they laughed.
Yeah.
Because I told them, I go, this is going to be very stressful, and it's going to suck at times.
Yeah.
And they just laughed, and I'm like, because I'm very blunt.
Yeah.
And they just laughed. I'm like, no, something is going to come up. I do not know what it's going to be. I had one last week. We were waiting on a piece of paper to come from Australia, and it got held up in customs.
Right.
Why is a piece of paper being held up by
Right.
customs?
Oh, those are, I have not done a foreign one,
Oh
but
my
those
gosh. I've done a few.
Yeah.
And I told the client, I go, I did Afghanistan in a war zone and had an easier closing than
Yeah.
this.
And you should think Australia would be no problem.
Aren't they a first world country?
You
would think
You
so.
would think so.
You would think so. But yeah, no, it's sitting in customs, and they're like, could be released tomorrow, could be 3 weeks from now. And we're like, I mean, thankfully they did release it the next
Yeah.
day, but we're like, it was literally one sheet of paper.
Yeah. And then you have to go tell your clients, like, they ask, how long is it going to be? Like, when
Oh,
customs
yeah.
releases it.
Oh, and on this one, you're talking about, it was an estate sale. So you're dealing with 3 different
Oh,
personalities.
my goodness.
Everything. So you're like,
Yeah.
there's going to be one of the 4 that's going to be upset.
Right.
There's no way around it.
Yeah. I mean, take your pick. It's going to be roulette on who it is.
But I prepped them ahead of time. I go,
Yep.
look, we have Australia. Australia will be a problem. I don't know why, but Australia will be a problem. And we thought we had everything worked out. We had them signing at the embassy, and we had notaries all lined up before we even listed the home.
Oh,
And there were still problems.
yeah.
So you just, you can anticipate as much as you can. And how many years you been in this?
4 years now.
4 years. So
Yeah.
anybody that has made it 3 is a veteran,
Absolutely.
because that means that you can pay your bills.
Right. Exactly. There have been times when I have questioned it, but
Oh,
Things
yeah,
happen.
no, I totally
it-
understand.
yeah.
They're like, would you like to modify your loan,
Right.
home loan? And
Yeah.
you're like, no, I'm getting paid next week, and you'll all be current.
yeah,
You
100%.
know, I've been there.
Yeah.
It happens because we're in sales. Those early years can be pretty stressful. But,
Absolutely.
But I tell people, I'm like, look, if you can make it 3 years, just aim for 3 years, because that first year you're going to suck no matter what.
Yeah.
You're gonna look back and go, I did that. I would. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And when you first start, you get one contract and you think the world is ending. I've got this one deal going on.
Yeah.
And in December, I looked down and I had 7, 8
Yep.
in process. I didn't even realize it.
No.
You grow into this in some
Exactly.
crazy way. And you're right. You look back and you're like, man, I didn't know what I didn't know.
You got Nick Trevelyan, Coach Nicky T talks about this to us in the Menace program, but he says he taught me this because he's my coach in real estate, and he said you get to where you keep raising your thermostat, so you get to where you have one deal, and you get used to having one deal,
Right.
then you get 2 deals, you get used to 2 deals, and you will look down one day and go, I only got 5 in, I got nothing going on.
Right. And then you start freaking out. You're like, you don't know when the money's coming in, but you're like, I have, what, 50,000
Or
potentially
you do
coming
like
in?
me,
Or-
yeah. You'll turn to your wife and she'll be like, "There's nothing in the account." And I'm like, "Yeah, but next week there's 50,000 coming in."
Right.
And she's like, "Oh, okay." And I'm like, "Yeah, just shoo everybody along. They'll get paid next week."
Just make a couple calls.
Yeah, like just or just send it to voicemail like I do.
Yeah.
And well, it's like we got marketing and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
And I don't know how you run it, but I'm always like spending on
Yeah.
marketing because I'm like, it'll make itself up. If you're doing
I think that's the hardest thing, to make that where you have to spend that money where you don't know what's coming in, and it's almost like when you know the deals are going to go through.
Yeah.
It's this like faith
Yep.
where something crazy is going to happen,
Yep.
but you also know a deal's going to come.
Yeah.
I
And you
was-
also make really bad investments too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
we've all done it.
Yeah.
To where they'll call me again down the line. I go, no, you guys already scammed me once.
Right.
You're not getting me again.
Yep. Exactly. I know certain calls, they'll come through and keep coming through. I'm like, no, I'm not going to
Yep.
And it takes a while to vet that out. That's where like when
That's the problem because in our career, nobody really wants to help each other. Like us sitting across from each other, this is rare.
Yes.
Like most look at it as adversaries, but I don't because I'm like, I cannot physically sell 7,500 homes that sell in the Valley a month.
And you wouldn't want to.
No.
You would go nuts.
I don't. I want a life.
Right.
And I'm like, look, I'll take my 5 to 7, and I'm happy.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, I can go walk my dog. I can go sit at Nectar.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I can just go goof off. I'm like, I told my wife, I said, you'll never see that I'm somebody that wants to work 70 hours again a week. Now you will when you get into the business. There's no doubt about it.
And I think you should be prepared for that.
You should, but there comes a point where you have to go, I've got to dial it back because a TC, a transaction coordinator, can do this. An admin person can do that. Outside marketing department can do this. And you start piecemealing that out and you're like, cool. So I only have to call prospects, follow up with past prospect appointments, do appointments, negotiate contracts, and that's it.
Right.
Yeah, because everything else is, quote, not my job.
Right. And one of my clients asked me like, hey, how much did you make per hour on this deal? Mm-hmm. And I think realizing I backed out, and that's when I had to get my license in Washington.
Yeah.
And I probably vastly underestimated how much I make per hour. And when thinking about like, can you hire somebody for 20, even $30 an hour? Absolutely. I mean, that's probably 10% of what truly our real skills are worth.
Easily. They talk about, is this $20 an hour work or $500 an hour work?
Yeah.
And you may not be making $500 an hour, but you have to be only doing work that can lead to making $500 an hour. Because if you're still tinkering in the $20 an hour work, well, you're going to end up around 100 if you're lucky.
Yeah.
And you don't want to be around there. And people look at that and go, we're horrible human beings for talking that way, but they also don't understand that our expenses for real estate are pretty high.
Yeah.
Everybody gouges us.
Yeah. Everybody is going to pick at something along every single memberships or dues or brokerages.
And lead fees.
Right. And it's not a knock on anybody. It's just everybody gets a piece.
And it's fine. It's all businesses. Like you want to do social media marketing, great. You want to do printing for even flyers, get a sign up, get a lockbox up. It's like a professional photographer.
Yep.
Videographer. I do videos on all properties. I do photo shoots. I do drones. I'm like, well, it's not free.
Right. Exactly.
It costs money.
Yeah. And that's where I think when I've started, like, I'm pretty good at using this. Like, I can make some good videos, and iPhones are great, but then you get to that point, like, how much time am I spending making a video versus can I pay somebody to do it, and what's my return on having them do it versus what I can do something else?
Yeah, like we're sitting in Menace Underground, and so this is run by Menace Media. And I have them cut all my podcasts and cut all the reels out of the podcast, so I don't do any of it. But I pay them to do it, so I don't have to do it. So when I have to do social postings every day, it's 10 minutes 10 minutes total for a reel that goes to, 15 different things.
Right.
And then if I do it again that day, it's like, great, it's 10 minutes again. Whereas when I used to do editing for my podcast, it was 4 hours. And you get to, and you're like, why am I editing my podcast? I should be outsourcing. So you start looking outside of your sales job and going, okay, everything else I do, what can I have somebody else do?
Right.
So I always told my parents I would never mow my yard.
I like that.
Hell yeah. Like they're like, you need to learn how to do this. And I go, no, I won't. I'll have a landscaper.
Yeah.
And so I remember when my stepdad came to visit me like 8-9 years ago, he goes, man, you got a nice yard. And I go, yeah, landscaper did it.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm not doing it. I'm outsourcing.
Yeah.
And it's like, I go, look, I can sit in here. They're going to do a good enough job. And that's the whole point of outsourcing is, can you find somebody that can do it good enough? Will they do it exactly the way you wanted? No. There's no way.
Exactly, because then you'd be paying yourself at that higher level. But at the end of the day, when you have that ability to outsource it, that was one of the most profound things I heard in real estate was when the purpose of doing it is to be able to do what you want, with whom you want, when you want.
Yep.
And it's like, that's where you make enough money to just buy back your time. Like you said, go to Nectar. Like, that's the reason you don't want to do every deal. Because we do this job and truly run a business in order to go do the things that we want and fund that life that we want.
Absolutely. I did an appointment a couple months ago to where they wanted me to sign it at a percentage that I would never work at. And I go, look, I will never shortcut on my marketing. because I don't want anything out there with my name on it that shows less value.
Right.
Because nobody out there is going to know that you paid me less and I couldn't afford to do everything you wanted.
Right.
So I told them no. And they were a referral from another client.
Interesting.
And I told them no, because I'm like, I can't do what needs to be done. You just say I look at it, it's still active.
Mm-hmm.
It's overpriced. They didn't do the marketing, the photos, everything sucks on it. And I'm
Yeah.
like, what did you think you were going to get for
Right.
somebody that was not going to give you premium service?
Right. Exactly. And I've had to make that shift where before I would say, okay, you know what, I want to get this listing.
Yeah.
Where you're like, okay, I got to get the deal. You're
We all
chasing
go- we all
deals.
go through that.
Yep.
We all
And
go
that's
through
part of
that.
that growth
Yeah.
process. In the first 3 years, you're going to do that. But now when I sit down, I've had some listing appointments this week where I just say, this is the price.
Yep.
And I think before I was questioning my own
Yeah.
like talents and am I worth this? And now just putting some deals together and the text I got is like, you saved this deal for us. And like seeing that,
Yep.
you're like, you know.
Exactly. And if you can sit down and articulate to somebody out there that here's all the things I do, and they're going to be, oh man, how expensive is this guy? And then you give your rate and they're like, in their mind, they're like, oh, that's it?
Right.
What a deal.
Right.
And you know that you're bringing value.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that's what you want to be able to do.
Yep. And I sat down with one client and they needed to move something quick.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, but they also had a certain amount that they needed to clear from their house.
Yeah.
And I used my contacts with the Tenant Trade Up, whereas I found some buyers.
Yeah.
But they have margins they have to meet.
Yeah.
And it didn't work out. And they're like, okay, we're just going to list it. And that's where like the beauty of this program is I can do any of that, but I knew that the front end is like, I'm bringing value by saying, hey, you know what? I can bring you somebody else
Yep.
to do this. Like, I don't need this here, but I want to just help you. And then and I think that's a big part of like articulating that value. And you're like, this is what I bring, this is what I'm going to do, and this is what I'm not going to do.
Correct. You do that through the 1031, and I do something similar. Like I'll do the appointment, and we'll offer to buy it. We'll give an option to list it, or we'll do another option, which we call the fix-up program, or put our capital into it to get it to the level to where we can get even more money for
Yep.
it. And it'll go property to property. But yeah, that's like I said at the beginning. This is what I love about real estate. There's a million different ways to get to the end.
Yes.
I think your program's great. I think that that I don't know how to do 1031, so it's like it's always nice to meet a fellow realtor and go, here, just spiff me.
Absolutely. And that's the beauty of this business where somebody like, I had one where I was like, you know what, it's kind of tricky. And I knew they did mobile homes.
Yep.
So I called them and said, hey, I've got this one. How can you help?
There's a guy in Menace that's what he specializes in.
Yes.
And I was like, great.
Yeah. It's like perfect.
Yeah, it is like, and I actually know how to do those because I started in the West Valley. And,
Okay.
and,
Yep.
Yeah, so I've done those $20,000, $30,000 deals.
Right.
Back in the day, which
Yep.
the land's worth more.
Yes.
But yeah, so we've all done that.
Right.
But there's so many rules on different pieces of real estate. I had somebody ask me yesterday about commercial, and I'm like, nope,
Yeah.
I don't do commercial.
I'm
They're
not
like, well,
touching
what
that.
if? And I go, no.
I know a great guy.
Honestly, I didn't. I was like, honestly, I don't even know who to refer you to because I said
No.
it's an old boys club and it's a circle. I said, I just honestly I
100%.
don't run around it, so I just don't
Right.
understand it. But no, it's just something that I'll stay in my lane.
Yeah. I 100% believe that where it's like, because you don't want to, it's a disservice. And I've told people, they're like, hey, can you do this? It's like, I mean, I could, but I know somebody better. And I'd much rather if somebody has better expertise, like I said, like you said, like spiff me a little bit, like get a referral. Like this is not something where it'd be my wheelhouse. And I know you could take great care of them. And I think that's the beauty of this where there is no competition. When you truly realize that makes it's slow. It's like, I've talked to a lot of people recently. It's like Neo in the Matrix. Like when you realize that there is no competition and you can collaborate with other people, like in the same space that are doing the same job, like it's like the bullets slow down and you can just like, you don't have to worry about it the same way.
They do, and like we said, it's like there's some old school agents out there that think that they can just do all the business and they're the only one. I'm like, you're not. There's no agent in the valley. We're a very unique market. There's no agent in the valley that has more than not even a 1% share.
Yeah.
Like when you run the numbers, you're like, no, it's actually a fraction of 1%. It's like 0.1 of 1%.
Right.
And it starts to blow your mind when you look at the open doors and stuff like that, and the volume, you go, you're still not a market share.
No.
You're such a little bit. And we're unique where we are with that, whereas you can go to, say, like Austin, Texas, and Keller Williams is like 20-some% of the market.
Right.
So it's like, yeah, that's there. but they can't get the same foothold here.
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
here it's like nobody wants to be nobody's been able to be the favorite.
Yeah.
Every time we think there's going to be one, they get their legs chopped out from under them.
Right. And it's one of those ones where if we left with, like, as an individual, even if we have programs like Tenant Trade Up or the Splash program, if we left, people would forget really quick.
They would.
You know?
That's why you've got to do the social media like we talked about.
Right.
You got to stay front of mind to where people can always know, hey, I need an agent. They're going to see your things to where you're continually raising your hand. That's why whatever sales business you're in, you should be on social media posting about what you do so people can always be constantly reminded that, hey, I'm over here. I'm over here.
Right.
And that's the whole point of it. And I think that's what people miss out on, the whole social media, about why businesses are supposed to be posting.
Yeah.
Because they think it's going to be instantaneous. It's not. It's a long-term game.
Right. And I think, too, where just seeing like the margins, kind of the back end stuff of how social media works, and you have 1,000 followers, 10% see it. And so like we come
you're
in,
lucky.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so you come in, you think like you're doing this, you're like raising your hand over and over. You're like, I'm here. Nobody's seeing it. So if you screw something up or say something funny, that's what like Nikki T says. It's like, you just post it. Go live. Don't even overthink it. You just put your content out there, because if you screw it up, who cares? And then you're more real. And I think that's where people connect with you better anyway.
Terrence Berner brought this up. They ran ads for the first MenaceCon, and they were 400 and some ads in before somebody that was in his personal circle said, oh, you're throwing an event. They hadn't seen it till 400 and some times later
Right.
that he was running an event. So that's why you have to be constantly posting 15, 30 times a day, and people think that's nuts. It's really not that hard to achieve.
Yeah.
Because that's not 15 to 30 on one platform. It's across platforms.
Right.
You're 4 to 5 per platform. It's like you do the math. It's not hard at all.
Yeah. And so many can cross, you post on one and it cross posts to
I
3.
always cross.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know what's going to hit. I think it's, there's a video I posted yesterday. I'm like, this is going to blow up on this one. And it did like nothing.
Right.
And then another one, I was like, so I'm going to do crap on this one. It blew up. I'm like, okay, I clearly don't know what I'm talking about.
Right. And that's the same thing when I had some success on TikTok. It was not any of the messaging that I was teaching or anything. I was doing this silly video where I was recording saying this is the highest and least sold. 150,000 views. Like I look back and I was like, whoa, but you never know.
You don't know.
You never know.
It's like one of my worst videos ever is like my highest one on Instagram.
Yeah.
And I'm like, are you kidding me? I've done like hundreds of videos way better than that one.
Right.
But I'm like, all right, whatever. That's the one that went viral.
Like for whatever reason.
Yeah. Have you ever gone through anybody else's Instagram and like watched their threes that are pinned? They're usually like their highest watched ones.
Yeah.
And then you'll start watching the other ones. You're like, well, they got way better ones than this.
Yes. And they have a few hundred views or if that. And you're like, it makes no sense why.
It makes zero sense. We are out of time. I can talk to you all day.
Likewise.
All right. So if you like the show, go ahead, comment, post, review, leave feedback. All of it helps. Hey, even if you hate the show, share it with your enemies, because that's the best way to torture them. So until next time, go out and be the kick-ass adult I know you all can be.